I've lived in Germany for a year and a half. I spoke to my landlord once, and he said, "So Dan, you've lived in Germany for a year now. What do you think?" And I go, "Germany is amazing. I love it so much, but sometimes I still feel like I'm a second-class citizen here." And he goes, "No, Dan, don't say that. You're not a citizen." So that's stupid, but I still feel grateful to them that they let me stay, that let me do my job in Germany, because back home in Russia I couldn't do comedy anymore because I couldn't do being anti-war, being anti-Putin is illegal now, so I couldn't do a lot of my jokes. I had to do like the trailers for my jokes. I would start my last shows in Russia by just saying, "One day he will die." That was the whole joke. Everybody laughed and applauded. Everybody except for one undercover cop who sat in the corner of the room with his camera. And he was like, "Who will die? Say it on camera." Comics in Europe are terrified when I tell them that cops and other law enforcement guys always come to comedy shows in Russia, but not to laugh. And they want just want to arrest some comedian for doing political stuff, and they're like, "That must be scary to perform like that." I'm like, "Yeah, it's scary, but also you feel important." Because one of my last shows in Russia was in this small club, and I was in the green room before the show, and the club manager comes in and he goes, "Hey buddy, don't freak out, but guys from Federal Security Service are in the audience today, so be careful." And I go, "Guys from Federal Security Service came to see me? That means I'm a good comic." He goes, "Yeah buddy, you did it." But of course, usually you are not happy to see a cop in Russia, like ever, like even if you need one. You know, I was robbed once in my hometown in the street, and after this robbery, I just stood in the street and I had two thoughts in my head. The first one was, "Oh fuck, I got robbed." And the second one was, "Oh fuck, cops are here." You know, you're never happy to see them. And thank God it's pretty easy to spot an undercover cop during a comedy show in Russia because they suck at hiding. It's their job to hide, they don't know how to do it. Because at the beginning of every show, the host talks to the audience and is like, "What do you do?" And people are like, "I'm a teacher, I'm a software engineer." And really often there is a guy who says, "It doesn't matter." And all the comics are like, "Yeah, that's a fucking cop over there." It's true because things they do, they really don't matter. So that's true, that's true. And I thought a lot like why I'm so obsessed with this cop's attention. And I realized it's because I have a really low self-esteem and I need attention. I don't even know how to explain my self-esteem. Okay, raise your hand if you think you have a low self-esteem. Okay, that's a pretty confident audience. All right. I saw some hands, but I know that there are people in the darkness who thought, "Who am I to even raise my hand?" That's my level of self-esteem. I hate myself. It's like I have this inner voice in my head that criticizes everything that I do, how I look, how I move. It's like those Mission Impossible movies where Tom Cruise has this earpiece and there's Simon Pegg with his laptop somewhere telling him what to do, what to run. I have the same thing, but my Simon Pegg is an asshole. He says, "Turn right. By the way, you're a piece of shit." I'm like, fuck. I don't see a whole Mission Impossible movie with this evil Simon Pegg. He would say horrible shit into Tom Cruise's earpiece. So he would say, "Stop doing tricks, you're old. You can't do it anymore, you're 60. Don't jump off a cliff on a motorcycle. Have you seen the title of the movie? Mission Impossible, you idiot." And then there's like 45 minutes of Tom Cruise crying on the floor. That is my favorite movie. And I thought a lot, it's all because we were used to talk to each other like that in my family. That is why I'm like that. And I realized that recently because I rewatched all the Harry Potter movies because it was raining. And and in the very last Harry Potter movie, there's a scene where Harry Potter is about to fight Voldemort for the last time. But before that, his whole family shows up as ghosts. And they say amazing things to Harry Potter. They say, "We love you so much. We will be with you till the end. Don't be afraid of anything." And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, what the fuck is this? Do families talk like that? I mean, if I were to fight Voldemort, I don't want my family to show up. Because my family will say something different. They will say, "You're just going to embarrass yourself. You should have just stayed home. By the way, read another book." stop with those Harry Potter references. It's always like that when you grow up in a Russian family. And when you grow up in a Russian family, it's really hard to get love from your family. And it's never an unconditional love. You always have to deserve it. And you don't just deserve it. It's better if you ruin your life somehow. Then you recover by yourself. And then you get your love. I have a cousin, he was 19 years old. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison for stealing. But he behaved well in prison, so they released him for parole of just 1 year. And then he became a hero in our family. At every family gathering, they would say, "Oh my God, Alex behaved well in prison." So they let him go. And I'm sitting next to my cousin, and nobody praises me for never going to prison. It's somehow worse in my family. And they never approved any of my life choices. I've always wanted to be a comedian, and they were like, "It's not a real job. You can't make money with comedy. You have to find a real job in an office." And I was like, "I don't want to work in an office. I will be unhappy in an office." And they're like, "Okay, so?" Like, it's an important thing to do. I'm like, "I want to be happy in my life." And they're like, "What are you, gay?" It's like... And I only started doing comedy when I left for another city, and I started doing comedy there, and I started posting pictures of me doing comedy to my Instagram page, and my family hated it. They would see a new picture of me doing comedy, and they would call me immediately, and they were like, "Stop doing it. Why are you doing it? You're gonna get expelled from the university. Stop." And I got so tired of these conversations, so I decided to hide my comedy career from them, especially after I got expelled. It became really important. So I created a separate Instagram page they didn't know about, and I would post pictures of me doing comedy to that page, and to my old page I would only post pictures of me being sad. My family loved it. They would open Instagram, they would see 20 new pictures of me being sad, and they were like, "All right, he looks unhappy all the time. He finally grew up." But I kept doing comedy, and it became a career, and I didn't know how to tell them about my secret comedy career. I didn't know how to come out to my family as a comedian. And thank God my government helped me. Because I did a lot of political jokes, and at some point the police decided to arrest me, or at least to interrogate me. And I spoke to every journalist that I knew to protect myself, and I found out how the journalism worked in Russia. Because at first, big media wrote, "A comedian is being interrogated by the police." Then media in my home region wrote, "A comedian from our region is being interrogated by the police." And then media in my hometown wrote, "Our boy is going to prison." This is the media my family reads, and they found out about my comedy career. And not only did those journalists publish the news, they also attached all the 3 comedy specials I had at the moment. And my family, for years, they thought I didn't do comedy at all. And in just one night, they watched 3 comedy specials where I shit a lot on my family. After that, only my mom called me. She called me and she said, "You know, I liked that. The jokes were good. I didn't know you were smart." I'm like, "What's that supposed to mean? You didn't know I was smart? You didn't expect me to grow up smart? Why? Did you smoke during pregnancy? Why?" I mean, if you make something, if you create a human being, you kind of expect it to be good. And if you are surprised, that means you had doubts. I don't know, imagine Elon Musk launching his rocket, and we watch the live stream and the rocket is taking off, and we hear Elon Musk screaming, "Holy shit, it's flying!" It means you had doubts. So yeah, I also had to hire a lawyer to protect myself from my government, and it's an interesting duo, a comedian and a lawyer, because basically you work as co-writers. You know, you meet several times a week, you sit down, and you tell your lawyers all of your stories, all of your jokes, but unlike your comedian friends, your lawyers try to remove all the funny parts from your stories, because the funny parts are the ones you go to prison for in Russia. So he kept removing them until the very last moment. We were already in the interrogation room, and the cop was about to enter, and my lawyer kept saying, "Don't make any jokes. For the next 30 minutes, don't entertain anybody." I'm like, "All right." And the cop enters, and the cop goes, "We have some questions about one episode of your show, but the rest of the show is amazing." It's so funny, and I'm like, this man has a great taste in comedy. I have to tell him all of my new stuff. And I see my lawyer across the table, and he's like, "All right." And I just answered the questions, and after some time, the cop leans into me and he goes, I know this is weird. I don't often talk to comedians as well. And I go, you usually talk to musicians? And my lawyer is like, can I confer with my client? And we go out, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, I need strangers' approval. He's like, it's not approval, it's a cop tactic. He pretends to be your friend to get more information from you. Don't fall for that. He's not your friend. He's not even a human being. Think of him as a dog. He's a dog that came to eat you alive. And I go, I love dogs. He's like, shut up, you idiot. That was a scary time in my life, but I guess it was the only time in my life when I saw some respect in my family's eyes, because to them I was about to ruin my life, and they were about to love me finally. And I helped them, because the war started and I spoke against the war immediately, and someone leaked my phone number to the public, and for the next 10 days, dozens of people called me on the phone. They would threaten me, they would say horrible shit. They would say, I know where you live, I'm gonna find you and murder you. But I was happy, because I have a low self-esteem, and I feel like I'm an underrated comedian, and a lot of people turned their attention to me. They called me on the phone. Think of that, Zoomers and millennials called me on the phone. They've built up the courage to call someone on the phone. It's so cool. And I decided to record every call, and I saved every file to my iCloud folder to have access to it from anywhere. And now, 2 years later, if I'm having a bad day, I just get a cup of tea and I just listen to those death threats, and it's nice. I remember my homeland. But at the moment it was really scary. Someone even called the comedy club where I used to work, and they threatened to blow the building up if I ever performed there again. That was scary, but now I kind of laugh at American comedians when they complain about cancel culture. When they're like, cancel culture. They're gonna cancel me. I won't be able to go to TV shows. I'll have to go to podcasts. And I'm like, shut up. I could have exploded during my penis joke, you know? This is the real cancel culture. But of course I understood that I would have to leave eventually. And thank God I was ready, because I spent a lot of my time learning foreign languages. But in Russia it's a weird process, because you usually learn a richer country's language, a warmer country's language, and then you use it to describe your life in Russia. Like in the 5th grade, we would learn to describe the weather outside, and every morning a different kid would get up and they would say, it's cold outside, the sky is gray, and it's snowing. And the next morning a different kid would get up and they would say, it's cold outside, the sky is gray, and it's snowing. And like 4 months passed, we never learned any new words. And our teacher got tired, and she said, you know what? Let's pretend. Let's pretend the weather is nice. Let's describe this imaginary weather. And from that day, a kid would get up and they would say, it's nice outside, the sky is blue, and the sun is shining. And the rest of us would look out the window, it's fucking freezing out there, and dead birds are falling from the sky. And only later I realized that we never learned the language. We learned to live in a non-democratic country. We learned to be people who are like, it's nice outside. The sun is shining. Human rights are not violated. And gay people are perfectly safe, because it's not true. For me, it was even weirder because I learned French, and French is such a bad language because I grew up in the 90s in a small industrial town. We lived in a shitty apartment, we wore weird clothes, we almost didn't eat meat. It was like Berlin, but not cool, you know? And I would learn French, and such a bad language because one day we had this young teacher, fresh from college. She was still happy, and one morning she was like, hey guys, I want you to tell me about your families in French. And one girl raises her hand, she's like, how do you say alcoholic in French? The teacher was shocked. She was like, an alcoholic in French would be un ivrogne. And the second shock was when like half of the class wrote it down. You're like, yeah. I'm gonna need that for my story as well, yeah. And sometimes we would learn useless stuff. Sometimes I would go to school in the morning and I would see a guy from my class, a huge guy, beating the shit out of older guys. And a few hours later, he's in my class and he's like, croissant. Like, why? You will never see a croissant in your life. Why do you learn the word? And I was the only good student in my whole French group, and one year I was awarded with a trip to a summer camp for talented children, and it was called the Peace Camp. They're all in prison now. And yeah, it was a summer camp for talented children from Russia, and they were joined by a group of American children, which is interesting, because I guess for Russian kids it was an award, and for Americans it was a punishment. Like, Johnny, you were not good this year, so you're going to Russia. But it was cool. It was cool because we spent weeks together learning both Russian and English, and I was sent there because I was good at French, so that was awkward for me. But it was cool. It was cool because we spent 3 weeks together, we became friends, we realized we're the same, we're not different, there's no need to be enemies. And you come back from that, you stop believing the Russian propaganda. You know this insane anti-American propaganda when they say, America wants our lands and resources. America wants your city. I was like, really? My city? It doesn't look like Russia wants it. Why would America want my city? And I realized that I wanted to learn English, but we didn't have money to hire a teacher, so I just tried to play video games and memorize words from video games. But it was weird because I left strategies, so my vocabulary was weird for a while. Because for years I couldn't name the days of the week, but I could say, enemy units are approaching. And I was bad at small talk, but I mostly learned French, and after school I got accepted to university, and I kept learning French there, and I spent 10 years of my life learning French, and after 10 years I realized that nobody needs French. Nobody needs French in Russia, and especially nobody needs French in France, because they know it, they don't need it. Again, they need engineers who speak French, but if you just speak French, you're just poor in 2 countries. That is your education, and the only real job you can get with the French is a French teacher. And it's not education, it's a fucking pyramid scheme, you know? Because you learn French, you become a French teacher, and then you have to get children to learn French, and then they all become French teachers, and you repeat it until the whole world population is French teachers, and the universe implodes. That's the plan of the French Republic. That is why French teachers love to travel to Paris and take selfies in front of Louvre. Because of the pyramid, they know. So yeah, I left, and that's a big deal for my family. They call me all the time. They're like, when are you coming back? I'm like, I'm not coming back. They're like, you won't even come to the grandma's funeral? And I get sad because I really don't know when I will be able to come back. And the second thing that makes me sad is that grandma is alive. But they discuss it, you know? Like, right in front of her, like, I can hear her. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I'm traveling all the time, I'm applying for visas all the time, I get rejected all the time, and I totally get why, because of my Russian passport, it's a problem, and I don't hold any grudges, but I hate being rejected by the Great Britain. Because any other country just say no and you move on with your life. But for some reason, the Great Britain feel that they need to explain why. You cannot... They write you an email. I don't even think it's a rule. It's just some bitch in London who just loves writing those long emails. And she's so mean. You know, she's like, dear Dan, we have to reject your application because we think you will try to stay in the Great Britain because back home you don't have any money. You don't have any real estate. And you are not an important person in the Russian society. So we have to reject your application. Have a good day. I'm like, wow. I wanted to spend Christmas in London. Now I want to kill myself because what's the point of doing anything? And I hate the phrasing like, we think you will try to stay in the Great Britain. Like, they use their imagination to reject me. Like, use your imagination to write a whole email. Like, we think you will try to stay in London. We think you will try to do comedy here. And you will not do great. And you will start drinking. You will become bitter and cynical, and your relationship with your wife will fall apart. Have you seen your wife? She's beautiful. She will find someone else here in the Great Britain. She'll get the British citizenship. She will be fine. But you, Dan, will keep falling. And one day in November, you'll just freeze to death in front of a comedy club. So we reject the application, have a good day. That is my dream email. So yeah, I keep traveling with my old Russian passport, and I tried to avoid that. I tried to get some other citizenship, and I tried everything. I tried to find any Jewish roots. I couldn't. Then I emailed my relatives in Belarus. I thought that would help me travel. And then I got so desperate, I even replied to the spam email. You know the spam email when they say, your uncle in Nigeria died. And I'm like, Nigeria? Nigeria works for me, can I get a Nigerian passport? And they're like, stop writing to us. You sound like a criminal. And I guess because I Googled that so much, Facebook and Google started showing me those ads for those shady schemes of getting another citizenship. And it's always either a Slovenian citizenship or Romanian citizenship. It's never a cool one. I'm never offered a Swiss citizenship, because what's the point? No one will believe me. If I show my new Swiss passport, the fear in my eyes will give me away. But I like Swiss passport because I like Switzerland and everything they do, even how they reject immigrants. It's so cool. Because I've met German nationalists and they suck. They have no originality. They're like, immigrants, go home. And you're like, no. That's the whole conversation. But Swiss nationalists are more subtle. They don't tell you to go home. They say, kebab is 50 euros. And you're like, Jesus Christ, all right, I'm leaving. Wow, what the fuck? There's no need to be rude, come on. So yeah, one day was particularly bad. I came back home and I saw again this ad for Romanian citizenship. And I clicked on this ad and I went to their website and there was a phone number on their website. And I called them. We actually talked on the phone. And I'm like, all right, how do you do it? How do you get me a Romanian citizenship? And they're like, you send us $3,000. We go to the National Archive and we find out that you are actually a Romanian. I'm like, you mean you will try to find out if I'm a Romanian? No, we will find out. And I just immediately decided not to work with them because they sounded too confident, you know? They sounded exactly like Russian cops. We will search your pockets, we will find weed. I don't even smoke weed, we will find weed. We have it. So I decided not to work with them because I don't want to live in fear with my kind of real European passport, because the truth will come out eventually, and like I will spend 10 years of my life in Romania getting used to their lifestyle and getting relaxed, and someone will discover the truth and someone will run into my house screaming, stop this man, he's not a real Romanian. And I'm about to drink a virgin's blood. I'm like, you know, typical Romanian stuff. So I decided not to work with them, but I Googled every review for this company, and it's fascinating how they really work, because basically you send them $3,000 and you send them a copy of her birth certificate, and in just 1 week this company disappears completely. It is amazing, it's so cool. So I keep traveling with my Russian passport, and it's always the same. You come to a new country, and there's always, you have to go through the passport control, and there's always 2 lines at the passport control. One of them is always called European citizens or American citizens, and the second line is always called all passports, which is just a nice way to say shitty passports. And when the war started, I moved to Turkey, and I started doing comedy in English in Istanbul, and I met comedians from around the world in Istanbul. Comedians from Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Russia, you know, all passports. And we all felt connected because we all ran away from dictatorship, from war, from poverty, but for some reason we had one American comedian in our group, and he was like, I came here to discover new cultures. And we're like, all right, fuck you, because you travel to discover cultures, what are you, 11? Who does that? I mean, I don't think people in Afghanistan do that. I don't think there's an Afghani guy standing in the middle of his room and thinking, my country only produces heroin, and the police took my father. I guess it's time to discover new cultures. No, I don't think so. We have different reasons to travel, you know? Guys like us, we moved to Turkey for democracy, you know? For us, moving to Turkey is a step up in terms of democracy. We come to Istanbul, we walk around, and we're like, All right. They only kill journalists here, right? Okay. Turkish guys don't really like to talk about it. I try it. I'm like, hey, you have the same thing politically as we have in Russia, right? And they're like, no, it's not the same. We don't have political assassinations here lately. And I think it's the same. I think it's the same problem. It's the conflict of generations, because they also have this generation of weird old dudes who are like, we need to restore the empire, we need the war. And there's a younger generation who are like, but I'm a DJ. You know, they're very, very different. When we lived there, we tried to get the best of the country. One day my wife looked me in the eye and she said, you're losing hair. You need the Turkish hair transplant. I'm like, shit, no, I don't want to do it. I mean, there are guys who are completely bald and are still attractive to women, like young Bruce Willis, right? And she's like, yes, Bruce Willis is really attractive, and you need a hair transplant. And I did it. I was one of those poor bastards at the airport, you know, those guys with bloody skulls and those headbands. By the way, those headbands are not for medical reasons, it's to cheer you up, you know? Because for some reason after the surgery, you're super depressed, and they kind of give it to you to say, you're not a loser, you're a ninja. And you're like, you fly home happy for some reason. That's a stupid procedure, because basically you come to a clinic and they shave your head immediately, and then they use like a regular marker, like a Sharpie, to draw on your forehead, your new hairline, and then they show you a mirror like at the market, like, And then you go and do a surgery, and afterwards your doctor, like a real doctor, visits you and he looks at you and then he says, remember, no sports in the next 4 months. And I'm like, I can do that. I hadn't been going to a gym for 4 years without any reason. Now I have a medical reason. So we spent 6 months in Turkey, and after 6 months, as every person in Turkey, I feel this weird desire to move to Germany, you know, and and we moved to Berlin, but still I tried to be in touch with all the comedians from non-democratic countries. We tried to support each other. Like, there was this open mic in Berlin, and there was a comedian from Iran, and he went on stage and he said, I want to share the news with you. The president of my country just died in a helicopter crash. And we're all in the back, we're like, woo! And the Germans in the US are like, what the fuck is happening over there? But we are super supportive. We're like, yay, come on, it's so cool. One day we'll all have that. One day all the dictators will die in one malfunctioning helicopter. That is our dream. All right, yeah, that's a political statement, yes. So yeah, even my barber in Berlin was from Turkey. He's lived in Berlin for 20 years, and he was my advisor in terms of immigration. I consulted with him. Like several months ago, he was cutting my hair, and I was bitching about my immigrant life, about how hard it is. And he decided to cheer me up, and he goes, don't worry, kid. It's only hard for the first 4 years. I'm like, fuck, really, 4 years? I'm an Eastern European man. 4 years is like 10% of my life. I cannot afford that. And I'm not just an Eastern European, I'm a Russian man, and Russian men don't live long. Our life expectancy is about 2 presidents, you know? I cannot afford... Life goes on so fast when you're an immigrant. My wife and I, we haven't noticed that we have celebrated 10 years of marriage during our immigration process. And it's wild, it's wild. I didn't think we would last that long, because our marriage is a very unfair one, because I am married to a beautiful, educated woman, and she is married to a stand-up comedian. It's not fair, because she's a grown-up person. She knows how to pay taxes, how to get insurance. And I'm next to her, I'm a comedian. I'm like, pigeons are weird. She's like, fuck, not again. And the problem is right now, I am the only working person in our family, and my whole family depends on my comedy career. And I think when I'm not home, my wife thinks, fuck, I hope pigeons are weird, because otherwise we're fucked. This is so stupid. My job is not a real job. I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have a schedule. My only job is to be on social media and promote my comedy. So we get up in the morning and I have breakfast and I say, honey, I am going to offend some people on Twitter for us. She's like, oh, you're such a hard worker. And I go and I use Twitter for the whole day. So I really appreciate my marriage, and I try to do everything to make it better. Like several years ago, I even tried to do the fertility test to see if I can have kids. And that scared me a lot because basically you have to go to a clinic and masturbate there. And that's like a scheduled masturbation, you know? You have to pick up a phone and call a person and say, can I come and masturbate? And they're like, does Tuesday work for you? And then you put it in your calendar and it just sits there for a week. And I was so scared, I even called my friend who went through this procedure and called him like, how does it work? Will they give me some like magazine to get through that? He's like, dude, it's a free Russian clinic. They don't have a magazine. They will probably have a Vladimir Putin's portrait on the wall. For some people that's enough, but I know your political views, get some porn. And I got it, and I recently realized that I used to watch so much porn. Like last year, I flew to Budapest to do shows there, and Budapest is like porn capital of the Europe. And I came to Budapest, and I recognized my hotel room. I've never been to Budapest before, but I've seen the room. I guess it's called porn deja vu. It's when you've never been to this place before, but you still sleep fully dressed. That's the procedure. So yeah, we moved to Berlin. We applied for long-term visa to stay there, and they said they'll let me stay if I prove that it's not safe for me to go back to Russia. And I'm like, all right. And I went home and I created a new email and I dragged my whole iCloud folder with death threats, and I sent it to them, and they approved my visa immediately. And I'm grateful, but at the same time, I feel sorry for the person who had to work on my case, because I Googled her. It's a nice German lady in her 50s. And obviously, one morning, she came to her office with a mug of coffee. She opened an email from me. And then she had to listen to like 40 minutes of people saying, I'm going to murder you and urinate on your corpse. Approved. That is a horrible job. I always try to speak about my immigrant experience when I'm on stage, and I did a show in Berlin, and this girl came up to me after the show, and she's like, oh my God, I can totally relate. This whole immigrant material is so relatable. I'm also an immigrant. I just moved here from Spain. Like, I don't think you can relate. I moved here from Russia. I spent 6 months proving that I'm not a wild animal to stay here. You moved to Germany from Spain. I guess you just had to buy a jacket. That's your whole immigrant experience. And I had to do a lot. I had to get like my healthcare insurance, and like I got my healthcare insurance, and now I see doctors all the time. I'm fine, but my healthcare insurance is like 400 euros a month. So I think I should see doctors all the time. And I see them all, every time they're like, we have bad news for you, you're fine. You just keep paying for this shit. And only the last month we had some good news. We ran some tests, and it turns out that I'm lactose intolerant. Yay, I'm so glad. Because I finally feel accepted in Europe, you know? Because it's a very European disease. You know, where I'm from, people don't have that. Where I'm from, people just tolerate lactose. It's the only option. And people in Europe think that it's a real disease. If you're invited for dinner, you get to call them on the day of the dinner and say, I just saw you now, I am lactose intolerant. And they have to do something about it. I guess they will just stop inviting me for dinner. So that's my main goal, because I'm married. And if you're married, sometimes you have to be friends with some other couples. Like your wives are friends, and so you have to be friends with some dude. You know, with some dude who likes cars, and he speaks about cars all the time. He fucking rambles about Teslas and the second car brand all the time. And we had these friends in Russia, and at some point I told my wife, hey, let's invite them to my show. And they came to my show, and I did like 20 minutes about how I fucking hate cars. Did those jokes work? No. Did I lose some of my audience? Probably. Did those guys stop being friends with us? Oh yeah, I'm so glad. That is so cool. I also like being lactose intolerant because you can basically eat anything, so you lose weight quickly. And that's cool because right now I'm obsessed with aging. You know those moments when you look at your own face and you think, what happened? You used to be so young and healthy, and what the fuck is this? You know those moments? Zoom calls, am I right? You know, when your co-workers are saying something, but you just keep staring at your own face and you just can't stop. The only thing I don't know about lactose intolerance is that why you get it. Because it's not because you drank too much or smoked too much. It's because, fuck you, that's why. That's what my German doctor told me. The only explanation I got was from my grandma. I called her and I'm like, I'm lactose intolerant. She's like, it's because you don't believe in God. I'm like, weird, but okay. Because I read the Bible and I know what God did to people who didn't believe in him. And if my punishment for being an atheist is lactose intolerance, it's cool. I mean, it's way better than burning, so I'm great. So yeah, we're immigrants in Berlin, and it's always a problem because we also always have like tiny immigrant apartments. And that's a problem because we also have 3 dogs. I have adopted 3 dogs because my father never hugged me, and it's a problem because you can't be intimate with your partner in a tiny apartment with 3 dogs. You can't really have sex in a tiny apartment with 3 dogs in it. Because anytime you have sex, you feel like you're being watched. You lift your head during sex and you see this fucking face at the doorstep. One of our dogs is a huge Labrador. She's super friendly. She loves people. She wants to hang out with people all the time. And when we have sex, she tries to jump on the bed to hang out with us. And we don't want that. We don't want a dog in our bed during sex. We're very conservative, so... Here's what I do. I try to keep having sex, but at the same time I try to gently kick my dog in the face. So she changes her mind, and of course my wife sees that, and she laughs. Because of the laughter, muscles from her vagina contract, and that makes sex better. And I'm really confused, you know? Because it feels great, but I don't want to get used to it, you know? I don't want to become a guy who can't come until he sees a dog in the face, you know? That is too weird. So yeah, we've been looking for apartments all the time. Not only because of that, I also read the science article the other day that said that whenever you flush down your toilet, you set bacteria in motion, and it flies everywhere and settles on everything in your bathroom, so you should store your toothbrush at least 3 meters away from your toilet. And I'm like, should I give it to my neighbors? Like, 3 meters? 3 meters from my toilet in every direction is my neighbors. I cannot afford being healthy. Are you shitting me? So yeah, we've submitted all the paperwork, and I've applied for an artist visa to do comedy legally in Germany. And only recently I found out that it's not a German artist visa; it's a Berlin artist visa. I'm legally allowed to live in just one city in Germany. Like if I wanted to live in Munich, they would say, no, can't live in Munich. Normal people live in Munich. Just stay in Berlin with your artist friends. Don't bother normal people. People in Munich pay taxes. Don't you fucking ruin it. Don't even talk to them. I googled, if you want to live as an artist in Munich, you have to have a contract with some Munich theater or opera. That means to live there, you have to be a good artist. To live as an artist in Berlin, you have to be an artist. That's really easy. You just come to this appointment and you say, hi, I'm an artist. Like, that is some art, obviously. Or you come to this appointment and you say, hi, I'm an artist. They're like, how do you prove it? And you're like, my mother is disappointed. And they're like, welcome to Berlin. We're all like that here. I really like it that Germany is the only country where they have like a definition of a creative person in their law, because none of the other countries have that. Because I started traveling to other countries and I started saying honestly on the passport control that I'm here to do comedy, and it's always the same. You always give your passport to an officer, and the officer usually talks to your passport, not to you directly. But if you say something weird, he gives you the look. Like, for how long are you staying? 2 days. What do you do for a living? I'm a stand-up comedian. And he gives you this long stare, and I usually wait, and then I say, detention room? And he goes, yeah. And I've seen a lot of detention rooms in the last 2 years. My favorite ones are in the United States because it's always interesting to sit there. They always have posters. It's interesting to read them. Like last year, I flew to Texas and they sent me to the detention room immediately. And for 40 minutes, I sat in front of a poster about human trafficking. And it said, if you are held somewhere against your will, call this number. I'm like, is this a test? I don't want to be here. Am I supposed to rat out my officer? But usually it ends well, because usually I see through the glass the officer with my passport, and he sits down and he opens his laptop and he Googles my name to verify that I'm a real comedian. And usually he finds my YouTube channel and he starts watching my stand-up clips on YouTube. And it's cool for me because I'm an independent comedian. I need more views, so that's cool for me. I'm especially happy when he has to skip 2 ads before my stand-up. I think I might not get into this country, but at least I will get 12 cents from it. So that is fine. I have a weird relationship with YouTube because it's a love-hate relationship, because 2 years ago I was living in Russia and I recorded a video saying that I would leave Russia and I would switch to English in my comedy. And some guy left a comment saying, "I hope you'll become very famous and the whole world will see what a shitty comic you are." I'm like, thank you. So yeah, we submitted all the paperwork and we had to go to this horrible building in Berlin where they deal with immigrants, and we had to pick up our cards, and we took our immigration lawyer with us to translate for us. And before even entering the building, my lawyer stopped me and he goes, "I think you should know what's going to happen. They will ask you some questions, they will look through your papers, and in the end they will ask you about the color of your eyes." I'm like, what? Like, yes, that's a procedure in Germany. They put the color of your eyes into your immigrant file. And I kind of know the history of Germany. So I moved closer to my lawyer. I'm like, "Is there a correct answer to this question?" And he goes, no, not anymore. And we go in, and they ask us questions. In the end, they're like, "What is the color of your eyes?" And I go, "Blue." And my wife says, "Green." And they approve my visa. And they send my wife to the integration course. Because obviously there is a correct answer to this question. And we Googled it. My wife had to listen to 700 hours of an integration course. I guess you had to listen to 700 hours about German politics and economy until her eyes turned blue. That's the procedure. So yeah, sometimes that's a weird place. I spoke to this comedian who just moved from New York to Berlin. We spoke before the show, and he was like, "So you spent more than a year here?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "So you have already survived the famous German winter?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm from Russia and I have survived the famous German winter. It was amazing, actually. The best winter of my life." But I know why he said that, because for Americans and for post-Soviet people, European winters are weird because there's usually no snow, there's no this winter joy. It's always dark and wet all the time. You get depressed, you have this intrusive thoughts all the time. Like the ones when you're on the platform waiting for a train and suddenly you have this inner voice in your head that says, "Jump." You're like, "What?" "Let's jump on the track." But isn't that dangerous? It's super dangerous. Fucking jump on the track. And it's really hard to resist. And people in Germany, they hate their local railways. They're called Deutsche Bahn. They hate them because the trains are always late or even canceled or some strikes all the time. But I really like Deutsche Bahn because it's the only reason I'm still alive. You know? You can't really try and kill yourself using Deutsche Bahn. They are too unreliable for that. You cannot count on them. I'm not afraid to die, but I'm really afraid of being embarrassed, you know? I always think, what if I jump on the track and the train doesn't show up? It's gonna be so awkward. I will lie on the track, I will look at people, then I look at the screen that says that the train got cancelled. Nothing will happen. I look at people, people look at me, and someone says, "You're stupid." That is my fear. I know that this is depressing, but recently it's gotten even more depressing because I did the same joke in a small bar in Berlin, and I was like, we all have this inner voice in our head when we wait for a train, this inner voice that says, and the lady in the first row says, "Push." It's so interesting when you are not the most fucked up person in the room. It's refreshing. It's cool. Yeah, everybody's depressed in Berlin. Every person that I know who moved to Berlin, they're all more depressed than they used to be before moving. Everybody, even Hitler. Even Hitler became more depressed after moving to Berlin because when he lived in Austria, he was a painter. He used to paint flowers. Then he moved to Berlin and he killed himself. That is a very short version of what happened to Hitler. But yeah. But that's a cool city. It's a cool city. One day I just stood in the park just looking at people from different cultures, different races, walking around, being cool and hip. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, what a cool place. They accept everyone. And my inner voice came back and it's like, it's not that you are good. They accept everyone. I'm like, shit. And 5 years of therapy went to shit. I hate myself again. I don't know what to do. And I decided to apply for an American talent visa, not because I want to move there. It's because I will have a document saying talented in it, and I will hold on to that until I'm done, until I die. It's scary to even apply for such visa because when you do comedy or any other art, you always doubt yourself. You don't know whether you're talented or not, and that doubt makes you keep doing more and more. But when you apply for a visa, in the end, you get an answer. And it's scary to get an answer because I know another comedian from Russia, he wanted this visa, he called a lawyer and he's like, I want American talent visa. And the lawyer, while on the call, Googled him and he goes, but you are not talented. I would kill myself for that. And I got another lawyer, he agreed to work with me and he wrote a huge letter on my behalf to the American government saying that I should be granted this visa because I sell huge theaters in Europe. And I called him, I'm like, are you sure? He's like, what's the problem? Like, I sell normal theaters in Europe. He's like, of course, Dan, it's America. You have to lie a little, you have to exaggerate. You will never hear an American rapper saying, I have an average size dick. No, it's always, or like, I wear a Uniqlo jacket. No, because it's practical. No, it's always a lie. And he sent a letter, he filled all the paperwork for me, and if you ever applied for an American visa, you know how stupid it is, like how insane those questions are. My favorite question is, are you a terrorist? And the answers are yes and no. And I'm not that professional, but I really think you only protect yourself from stupid terrorists. From the ones who are like, are you a terrorist? Yes. Oh, fuck. Can I get another form, please? Fucked up. So this lawyer charges $8,000 to get the paperwork done, and I thought that was a lot, but I paid him $4,000 up front, and that turned out to be the best investment of my life because he was very motivated to get another $4,000 from me. So he called me every week saying, Dan, you are very talented. Just keep doing it. Your portfolio is great. The letters are amazing. America will be so lucky to have you. And I always kept myself from saying, thank you, Dad, because I've never felt so supported in my life. That is so cool. And I know what I'm talking about. I'm in therapy for 5 years, and every Thursday my therapist says, you'll get there. You will feel yourself better. You will love yourself eventually. My lawyers, just 1 week of work with me, said, you fucking rock. I mean, it's so much better. I mean, if you don't want to move to the US, I advise you to get an immigration lawyer. I mean, it's so much better and cheaper than therapy. And we've submitted all the paperwork and we waited for several weeks and we got the response. I got the visa, but now my brain cannot process it because the official name of the visa is an extraordinary talent visa. And my brain just shuts down. It cannot accept it. All right, okay, yeah. Yeah, a Russian got a visa. I know, that is cool. Yeah, my brain cannot process it. My brain reads it in a sarcastic voice, you know? I just hold my passport and it just says an extraordinary talent visa, but my brain says, oh, look, we have an extraordinary talent here. Fucking asshole. I guess it's because I've never heard that in a proper context, because when I was a kid, if I did something incredibly stupid, my family would say, we're so sorry, he's extraordinary. And I also applied for the British talent visa, and the British talent visa is called an exceptional talent visa. And I thought I would kill myself if I got that. But the Brits didn't let me down because they sent me an email saying, Dear Dan, you can come to the UK, but just remember that you are not exceptional. You're a promising talent. I'm like, oh wow, I got the visa and I feel like shit. That is so cool. Yeah, but things get better because last year I did a show in Prague and it was a big sold-out theater. It was like 400 seats. And before the show, I just took a picture of the audience through the curtain with my phone. And I sent the picture to my mom and I texted her, like, hey, look, 400 people came to see me in a totally different country. And she replied, I'm so proud of you. I was like, wow, it finally happened. Someone hacked my mother's account. All right, that is my time. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. You're lovely. Thanks.